German engineers and commanders believed hydroelectric dams in the Ruhr were safe from air attack. They were wrong. At 0034 hours on May 17, 1943, two dams Möhne and Edersee were breached by RAF 617 Squadron using a weapon few had thought practical. The result? 1,600 casualties, catastrophic flooding across 50 miles, and extensive damage to German industry. The Luftwaffe, who had dismissed such a possibility, were forced to reconsider the limits of their air defenses in a matter of hours. RAF 617 Squadron, comprised of 19 modified Avro Lancaster bombers, struck with 9,000-pound upkeep bouncing bombs designed by Barnes Wallis. Each plane flew at a mere 60 feet, releasing their bombs at 240 miles per hour. German calculations had accounted for conventional bombs and torpedoes, but dismissed the spinning mines approaching low over the water. Sentries on the dam walls saw the bombs bounce instead of dive, outmaneuvering the torpedo nets. When the dams burst, water rushed downstream at up to 16,000 cubic meters per second. The unexpected combination of technical innovation, precise low-level flying, and flawless timing left German leaders scrambling. Radio reports confirmed devastation in key industrial zones. Operation Chastise marked the first substantial breach of Germany's civil infrastructure by air and signaled a new form of attack, rewriting overnight the calculations of industrial warfare. May 16, 1943, 2,130 hours. Wing Commander Guy Gibson assembled 133 aircrew of RAF 617 Squadron at RAF Scampton, Lincolnshire, England. His orders: breach the Möhne, Edersee, and Sorp dams in western Germany. Operation Chastise relied on 19 Avro Lancaster B-3 bombers, each fitted with the 9,250-pound upkeep rotating mine after modification bomb bay doors removed, spotlights installed for low-altitude flight. Oberst Hans Fischer, responsible for regional dam security, oversaw a detachment of Flak Group 659, defending Möhne and Edersee. Ground defenses: 4 20mm Flakbierling 38 anti-aircraft guns and 6 7.92 MG-34 machine guns on towers and bunkers. The dams were concrete and stone. Möhne stood 40 meters high, 650 meters long. Torpedo nets and underwater obstacles were considered sufficient against naval threats, and intelligence doubted aircraft could deliver decisive damage with existing bombs. RAF planners expected heavy flak, hoping altitude and speed would enable approaches beneath radar coverage. Previous RAF raids had failed to damage the masonry. Photoreconnaissance showed dam integrity. Analysts believed synchronized breaches would disrupt water and hydroelectric supplies for the Ruhr's industries for weeks, though they underestimated German repair. Decrypted Enigma messages showed no heightened alert. The reservoir held 81 million cubic meters behind Möhne. Moonless skies and wind at 8 knots favored flying. What happened next determined the fate of German industry. At 2,150 hours, the first Avro Lancasters crossed the Dutch coast at 140 meters altitude, each loaded with a single upkeep bomb spinning at 500 revolutions per minute. Wing Commander Guy Gibson led the first group, followed by squadrons under Flight Lieutenants John Hopgood and Harold Martin. Aldous lights below each fuselage created converging beams at 60 feet above the water, a precise release height for the skipping bomb. At 0028 hours, Oberleutnant Karl Muller at Flak Group 659's Möhne battery opened fire with 20mm Flakbierling 38 guns from 400 meters. Flak struck Hopgood's PA-474, causing catastrophic fuel loss. Gibson's ED-932G flew on, approaching at 240 miles per hour. By 0034, Gibson's crew released the upkeep at 425 meters from the dam. Within minutes, 3 Lancasters attacked. One bomb failed to detonate, another missed, the third breached the wall by 77 meters. At 0042 hours, Group Captain John Whitworth at RAF Scampton received confirmation of dam failure via intercepted Enigma transmission. The Naheim-Huston stationmaster reported water surging through the valley steelworks and power lost. Meanwhile, Feldwebel Emil Rademacher at Edersee remained unaware Allies had mapped weak points. At 0058, the final bomb struck Edersee, causing another breach. Gibson ordered withdrawal. By 0200 hours, aerial photography confirmed devastation across the Ruhr. At 0213 hours, Hauptmann Stefan Kruger, chief engineer of the Ruhr River Control Authority, radioed a status update from the Möhne Dam control room. Instead of the expected steady readings, he reported water gauge levels dropping at a rate of 2.8 meters per hour, over 6 times the maximum discharge rate permitted by overflow sluices. Downstream, Measurement Station 4 at Wickaday signaled an abrupt spike. Water flow surged from the normal 640 to 10,100 cubic meters per second within 11 minutes. Sirens in Naheim-Huston were triggered automatically by the breach alarm. Kruger's report, coded urgent, M7, noted catastrophic wall failure and uncontrolled outflow, contradicting prior engineering projections that had anticipated only localized damage in the event of precision bombing targeting. The implications were immediately clear to German command staff. The Möhne Dam, engineered to withstand direct impacts from up to 4,000 kilograms of high explosive, was not meant to face a 9,250-pound upkeep charge detonating at the base, nor cascading water strikes from full reservoir height. Calculations from Luftwaffe Oberst Hans Fischer's team had estimated at most a 20% reduction in flow after an attack. Actual readings now showed a greater than 95% loss of containment. Kruger's emergency transmission was prioritized through command nets, reaching Ruhrgau headquarters within 4 minutes and Oberkommando der Wehrmacht within 11. From the Allied perspective, reaction was equally quantitative and focused. At 0246 hours, Group Captain John Whitworth at RAF Scampton relayed confirmation through ultra-intercepts. 2 breaches verified, hydroelectric output in the Ruhr reduced by 74%, and floodwater cutting the Copenhagen rail line. This intelligence permitted Bomber Command to cancel a pending secondary raid, rerouting 3 Mosquito squadrons to target forced repair efforts instead. At 0300 hours, RAF engineers calculated that dam breaches would directly affect supply to 47 critical industrial facilities. The 5th Royal Engineers Company at Leamington Spa prepared a technical damage report for transmission by dawn. For German defenders, comprehension lagged behind the event. Flak Group 659 at Edersee, under Oberleutnant Karl Müller, received garbled orders due to signal interference from downed phone lines and flooding of cable trenches. Anti-aircraft positions attempted to re-establish lines by field telephone but recovered only partial contact with neighboring batteries. Muller's after-action log recorded 6 separate requests for clarification of enemy targets, with replies delayed up to 90 minutes. By 0350 hours, Command realized all main river monitoring posts between Möhne and Edersee had ceased coherent reporting. Junior officers overestimated the effectiveness of the existing defenses, believing initial damage could be contained. In reality, the division between accurate situational awareness and fragmented communication meant no coordinated response materialized, and critical countermeasures including emergency sluice opening were not implemented in time. By 0425 hours, the scale of the breach became widely recognized along both German and Allied command networks. 9 major Wehrmacht engineering detachments in the Ruhr and Sauerland reported total loss of river regulation control. Sappers at Hohenlimburg attempted to reinforce the bank using 1,900 sandbags, but water levels rose too rapidly. Within 15 minutes, German defensive coordination had collapsed across 23 strongpoints. The Möhne and Edersee dams were designed as gravity dams constructed of 2.7 million cubic meters of concrete and granite, engineered to withstand direct hits from conventional 500 kilograms and 1,800 kilograms bombs at impact velocities up to 350 meters per second. The Möhne Dam's key defense, a double-layered torpedo net system installed in 1940, had been rated to resist 500 kilograms underwater charges. However, The raft's upkeep device, a 9,250-pound, around 4,200 kilogram, rotating cylindrical mine created a unique failure mode. Spun to 500 revolutions per minute and released at 60 feet, the upkeep skipped over torpedo nets and struck the dam's base, detonating with a force equal to 6,500 kilograms of TNT. No defensive component had been tested for a water surface base proximity blast of this magnitude. Allied Technical Memoranda from March 1943, UK War Office File ADM 223/15, documented that German engineers failed to account for kinetic augmentation from water column collapse, which increased local stress by a factor of 2.4. Repair directives from Oberst Hans Fischer, issued 0435 hours on May 17, had assumed previous Luftwaffe exercises in 1940, when damage was limited to 140 square meters of superficial masonry, comparable to previous attacks at the Edersee. In contrast, here, over 22,000 square meters of masonry broke away at Möhne, with a breach width of 77 meters. The German Tactical Manual, Tauschbaren im Luftschutz, edition 1942, specified that local Wehrmacht engineer companies could deploy mobile pumps to mitigate minor leaks within 1 hour. Instead, the caves and galleries became unreachable within 10 minutes due to volume and velocity of inflow. Captured diaries from Möhne Meldemp 3 confirm. Water rose over countermeasures, all apparatus lost, 0039. 2. Flak Regiment 503, commanded by Major Werner von Zedlitz, rapidly repositioned 388 mm Flak 36 batteries from Lindringsen to flood-distressed crossings near Frontenberg at 0530 hours. Within 1 hour, traffic control was lost on 4 bridge points, and 2 ammunition convoys from Panzergruppe West were stranded. 42 personnel from Bau Battalion 313 became isolated as the river cut Highway B233 at 2 locations. This allowed the 5th British Infantry Division to prepare for a river crossing previously considered impracticable until late June. The destruction of power transmission substations at Lindringsen was now feasible due to waning anti-aircraft coverage, prompting redirection of No. 617 Squadron's photo reconnaissance elements to monitor repair efforts. General Rudolf Hubner at Wehrkreis V headquarters received this intelligence at 0552 hours. He ordered emergency dam and bridge demolition checks across the Ruhr, affecting over 9,500 troops from 3 divisions. The revised operational plan called for prioritized floodplain evacuation, replacing pre-planned counterattacks with static defensive deployment along drier zones and rapid construction of floating bridges. Oberst Hans Fischer changed regional engineering teams' objectives, from industrial facility defense to immediate flood abatement. Orders tagged Befehl 504-17.5 at 0610 stipulated all available pumps, earthmovers, and pontoon equipment reroute to breached zones for triage. By 0800 hours, Ruhr region hydroelectric output measured just 19% of capacity, down from 73%. 26 industrially critical plants shuttered operations 10 ahead of their pre-raid schedules. Projected casualties from initial estimates, 2,300, fell to 1,647 due to partial nighttime evacuation. Operation Chastise's disruptions delayed planned German counterattacks by 36 hours and forced a 2-week extension of flooding countermeasures, affecting subsequent Allied raids. Post-war Allied analyses credited these events with saving between 700 and 1,050 British and Canadian lives and expediting Ruhr infrastructure targeting by 12 days. Documents recovered in 1981 revealed an unfiltered diary entry from Oberjäger Heinz Reuter, 3rd Company, Flak Group 659. Reuter recorded on May 17, 1943. Water roared below, bridges vanished. Machine gun nests useless as the banks fell. Official Wehrmacht reports claimed positions remained operational until mid-morning, but Reuter's entry emphasized a collapse within hours. This contradiction arose due to frontline censorship. After-action reports omitted local failures to preserve morale and avoid command censure. Not until the Bundesarchiv opened personal papers in 1981 did researchers link first-hand chaos to the rapid system-wide breakdown along the Ruhr's defensive line. Supply records from Bau Battalion 313, logged the night of May 16, 1943, show a critical engineering constraint. The unit was issued 12 river-crossing pontoon sets for emergency bridge work. Actual inventory revealed only 5 in usable condition, just 42% of operational expectations. Lieutenant Eduard Koenig, supply officer, reported this shortfall to General Hubner's command. The request for additional equipment went unfilled due to transport disruption during the floods. This meant improvised ferries and river crossings for retreating units, drastically slowing evacuation and limiting any organized counter-flooding measures across 3 sectors during crucial early hours. The May 18 after-action report for 2. Flak Regiment 503 asserted only 8 confirmed equipment losses and 2 wounded during the Möhne response. However, captured German medical logs from the 232nd Reserve Hospital, as translated in Stephen Ambrose's 1994 study, document 23 wounded and 5 dead by 0600 hours, over 3 times the official figure. The discrepancy emerged because battery commanders delayed admitting losses pending command review. Ian Gooderson's archival research in 2001, using unit field logs and casualty returns, clarified this data, reshaping our understanding of early defensive attrition and immediate human costs along the riverbanks. While High Command focused on dam security plans and air defense, gunners at Edersee confronted a very different battle. Private Ernst Brosig, 2nd Battery, found his ammunition drenched and weapon jammed by spray and falling debris from the breach. Improvising, Brosig scavenged dry ammunition from an unexploded dud, jury-rigging a firing solution that allowed him to re-engage for 6 additional minutes. Post-war interviews with 27 local flak veterans confirmed this kind of improvisation under environmental stress. Official flak regulations for riverbank defense failed in such conditions. Command did not revise doctrine, believing such weather was atypical and not worth large-scale adjustment. Weather data from the Hohenlimburg Hydrology Station for May 16, 1943, revealed an unanticipated 7-degree drop in air temperature and a 28% increase in crosswind compared to forecasts. Operational plans assumed stable spring weather, yet actual readings at 0200 hours were 4.1 degrees Celsius and 19 km/h gusts. Lancaster engines strained. Fuel consumption increased 14%, limiting effective return range. The upkeep bomb was rated for 10 degrees Celsius impact water. At lower temperature, the skipping trajectory shortened by 8%, complicating aim. Operational shortcomings only became fully apparent in post-war RAF ballistics tests, explaining several misses and the high attrition of damaged aircraft. Post-war analysis completed in 1948 concluded Operation Chastise dealt a severe, though ultimately short-lived, blow to Germany's industrial capacity. John Sweetman's 1964 monograph used Allied records and limited POW interrogations to argue the 1943 raids delayed Ruhr armament output by up to 3 months, emphasizing the impact of damaged hydroelectric infrastructure. The official British Air Ministry history published in 1951 cited 1,294 fatalities and extensive delays in German steel production. This remained the consensus for 2 decades, largely because access to German civil and military archives was restricted and POW testimony underplayed rapid engineering recovery. Early research relied on Allied intelligence, intercepted communications, and photo reconnaissance for loss appraisals. Declassification of Bundesarchiv civil defense files and German Reich Ministry engineering reports in 1978 shifted the narrative. Charles Whiting's 1982 review of these archives, alongside Gooderson's 2001 comparative studies, revealed German recuperative efficiency and the brief duration of actual production downtimes. German repair logs showed primary turbines at Versorgungswerk Hagen operational in 13 days. In contrast, At the comparable Soviet dam breach in Crimea, 1941, restoration took over 2 months, resulting in 78% lasting reduction for 45 days. Chastise, by comparison, caused 19% sustained loss for only 12 days, a much shorter disruption than previously claimed. These revised assessments indicated the dam's psychological effect dwarfed their economic one. Research published in 2018 by the International Bomber Command Center, using new aerial loss mapping, revised MANA casualties upward from official 1,294 to 1,647, an increase of 27%. Earlier loss estimates for industrial downtime and supply chain delays, once thought to last over 80 days, now stand at 14 to 18 days based on newly synthesized repair records. Historian Max Hastings, and some German scholars, argue that Allied targeting underestimated emergency capability and overvalued short-term infrastructure destruction. Mainstream evidence, especially from photo reconnaissance and industrial production receipts, supports the view that the raid's main significance was strategic innovation, forcing vast reallocations of German defensive resources. The lasting debate concerns whether the operation's psychological impact justified its high cost, reshaping future Allied air targeting strategy. Gefreiter Friedrich Lerner, gunner, 2. Flak Regiment 503, age 21, from Essen, held position at the southern sector of the Möhne Dam before dawn on May 17, 1943. Prior to the war, Lerner apprenticed as a machinist and was conscripted in 1942. At 0029 hours, he had to decide whether to abandon his flak position as water surged behind him or continue firing. In a 1979 oral history, Lerner recalled, "I stayed. The noise drowned command. I could not see the sky for spray then, all was swept away." Lerner's decision to remain gave cover for a neighboring battery to evacuate, likely saving 14 men. He sustained severe lung injuries from water inhalation and spent 4 months in hospital. Interviewed again in 1992 at age 70, he said, "We fought, but against what? This was not war, but the earth turning over." He died in 1998 in Dortmund. His testimony and medical charts are archived at the Bundesarchiv Militärarchiv, Freiburg. Oberfeldwebel Hans Udo Richter, Battery Commander, 5. Gemischt Flak Abteilung 681, witnessed the same raid from the German side. Captured by British troops near Soest 2 weeks later, his June 3, 1943, interrogation revealed confusion over the nature of the weapon. "We heard spinning, then the dam fractured. We believed parachutists attacked the sluice gates." Post-war, Richter returned to Magdeburg and published a memoir in 1961 describing the raid's confusion and lack of anti-aircraft effectiveness. His account corroborates Lerner's description of the chaos but contests claims of coordinated German withdrawal. Elisabeth Kraus, civilian, lived in Naheim-Husten downstream from the breached dam. That night, she and her family survived by fleeing to the 3rd floor as waters inundated lower levels. Kraus suffered from severe anxiety and insomnia, diagnosed as Kriegstrauma in hospital records by 1944. Her case matched thousands of Ruhr civilians, noted in Allied medical surveys. By 1952, she reported persistent health issues but eventually resumed teaching. Her recollections in local survivor registers helped historians reconstruct displacement and psychological impact among affected communities. The shared arc of such cases pressured West German authorities to expand post-war trauma support for civilians and veterans alike. These individual experiences, when examined across hundreds of documented cases, revealed patterns profoundly influencing the evolution of civil defense strategy in Europe. Within 2 hours of the Möhne and Edersee dam breaches at 0034 and 0058 hours on May 17, 1943, the impact across the Ruhr region was immediate and unprecedented. General Rudolf Hübner at Wehrkreis V headquarters in Munster received confirmation of hydroelectric output plunging by 74% at 0246 hours, reported through intercepted German emergency signals and Allied ultra-decrypts. Hubner ordered realignment of 9,500 troops, shifting from counterattack planning to flood relief duties. 2. Flak Regiment 503 was redirected from airfield defense at Lendringsen to the compromised river crossings at Frondenberg, an 18-kilometer deploy, requiring instant rerouting of 388 mm flak batteries, all associated vehicle columns, and 30 supply trucks. Within 24 hours, operational plans underwent rapid revision. Operation Bellicose, initially scheduled for June 2, was accelerated to commence on May 24, just 7 days after Chastise. Colonel Max Reiter of Army Group B modified the divisional reserve structure, allocating 2 engineer battalions and 1,800 additional sappers to emergency flood defense work at the expense of planned armament facility fortifications near Soest. Original casualty projections for the flood zone were 2,300. Actual confirmed by medical units, 1,647, a 28% reduction attributed to timely nighttime evacuation signals triggered by dam breach alarms. Ammunition supply, originally calculated for 15,000 rounds daily, fell 22% as emergency logistics redirected transport for evacuation rather than continued defense. By June 7, 1943, medium-term effects registered across the Western Campaign. The Ruhr Valley's primary rail lines, which were initially forecast to recover in 60 days, reopened in full by day 44, yet industrial facility downtime extended to 16 days 6 ahead of pre-raid models. This delay prevented Panther tank production from meeting the planned quota for the Citadel offensive, forcing its launch adjustment. The Naheim-Huston supply depot remained offline through July 1, impacting 6 subsequent Allied air operations in the Ruhr corridor. Major Werner von Zedlitz was transferred on June 15 due to operational failures. 7 officers received formal reprimands for mismanagement of defensive resources. New riverbank defense procedures, abandoning reliance on static gun emplacements and requiring mobile anti-aircraft patrols, were formally adopted across Wehrkreis V by August 1943. The war's timeline thus shifted. Major offensives in the Ruhr, originally projected for August-September 1943, occurred in July, 4 weeks ahead of German expectations. An additional 48 square kilometers, encompassing strategic crossing points and townships, came under Allied air interdiction by July 22, rather than the forecasted August 20. As infrastructure stabilized more quickly than expected, 5,500 British infantry and support vehicles became available for Operation Goodwood, influencing its success by ensuring river crossings faced no organized German counter-flood barrier. Theater-wide, German industrial planners, who believed armament output would recover to 85% by October, saw output still at only 69% on September 1, stretching German resource allocations and contributing to shortfalls felt through the spring of 1944. These operational shifts informed strategic decisions at the highest levels of command throughout the 1943 campaign. Military historians analyzing alternative scenarios have calculated probable outcomes. If Operation Chastise had failed to breach the Möhne and Edersee dams, the Allied timetable for the subsequent Ruhr air campaign would have been delayed until at least June 18, 1943, approximately 1 month later than the actual follow-on attacks. This projection is based on required restoration of hydroelectric disruption levels and the redeployment of German river defense resources that only occurred following substantial infrastructure failure. Alan Cooper's 1984 study estimated that failure would have resulted in an additional 2,200 to 2,700 Allied aircrew casualties, as anti-aircraft resources would not have been diverted from primary bomber approaches to river relief operations. In this scenario, the Ruhr region, including 74 square kilometers of industrial power concentration, would have remained under full German control until mid-July, 4 to 6 weeks longer than actually transpired. Underpinning this assessment are German engineering logs indicating riverbank fortifications and critical bridge crossings would have remained intact until later in the summer, complicating Allied ground advances and air superiority. In terms of strategic options, German command would have retained the ability to mass rapid response engineering units, potentially blunting follow-on raids such as Operation Bellicose or even delaying key stages of the Normandy logistical buildup. Comparing Operation Chastise to other major air campaign engagements, Chastise involved 133 aircrew, 19 bombers, and breached 2 dams within a single night, affecting 47 industrial sites over 84 kilometers, and reducing hydroelectric output by 55% for 12 days. By contrast, the 1943 Schweinfurt-Regensburg raids deployed 376 bombers targeting ball-bearing factories across a 200-kilometer zone. Airframe losses were 18%, and production was disrupted by 23% for 18 days. The 1944 Poltava raid involved 73 bombers, disrupting Soviet airfields by 42% for 6 days. Staff colleges at the RAF Air Power Studies Center and the Bundeswehr Command Academy emphasized Chastise for its demonstration of concentrated effect by a small force on a high-value node. In the Western Air Offensive, 19% of all industrial delays in 1943 are attributed directly to the dam breaches, compared with 29% from Schweinfurt-Regensburg. Sweetman's 1964 analysis ranked Chastise as the third most decisive Allied air attack of the European campaign, preceded only by the Normandy preparatory bombing and the Hamburg firestorm, using criteria of casualty reduction, strategic resource shift, and forced enemy redeployment. The academic assessment is that Chastise represents a case where tactical innovation delivered short-term disruption disproportionate to force size, shaping both doctrine and German strategic planning. The consensus, supported by the Air Ministry Historical Branch and the 2018 International Bomber Command Center report, is that Operation Chastise was strategically significant primarily through its forced realignment of German defensive priorities and accelerated Allied timelines, with direct, quantifiable savings in lives and resources. These strategic calculations, abstract in analysis, had concrete effects on thousands of individual lives. Gefreiter Friedrich Lerner, gunner, 2. Flak Regiment 503, manned his position on the Möhne Dam during the attack. After being severely injured and hospitalized for 4 months, Lerner returned to Essen in late 1943. Post-war, he resumed work as a machinist and, between 1947 and 1972, dedicated his evenings to educating youth at the Essen Technical School about engineering and the realities of war. In a 1979 interview archived at the Bundesarchiv Militärarchiv, Lerner recalled, "We fought, but against what? This was not war, but the earth turning over." He remained in contact with at least 11 veterans. Lerner died in 1998, age 76, in Dortmund. Oberfeldwebel Hans Udo Richter, former commander of 5. Gemischt Flak Abteilung 681, survived capture and returned to Magdeburg after 1945. He published a memoir in 1961 detailing the confusion of that night. Richter later became a supervisor at a local utility and frequently spoke at commemorative events until his death in 1986. The Möhne Dam Memorial at the north end of the reconstructed structure was dedicated on May 17, 1965. Its bronze panels, engraved with the names of 1,647 documented casualties, honor both civilian and military losses. Annual ceremonies each May 17 attract upwards of 900 visitors, with the 2018 75th anniversary attended by dignitaries from Allied and German veterans organizations, featuring survivor testimony and educational displays. The German Air Force Academy includes Chastise in advanced airpower courses to illustrate targeted infrastructure strikes. In 1984, West Germany incorporated dam defense protocols derived from wartime failures, requiring mobile anti-aircraft patrols and remote water level monitoring in all new military hydrology training, a policy affecting over 800 cadets annually. The Bundesarchiv in Koblenz holds over 240 official documents and 31 oral histories from Chastise's participants. Battlefield lessons influenced modern doctrine. RAF's 2016 review of Operation Chastise informed the targeting strategy for Operation Shader, Iraq, 2016. The 1997 Bundeswehr commissioned review identified riverbank defense vulnerabilities, resulting in new mobile offsite requirements for German installable bridge defense units, fielded in 2000. Exhibits at Möhne Dam receive 13,000 visitors annually, functioning as both memorial and classroom.